when Napoleon was exiled on the island of Elba, about 20 kilometers into the Mediterranean Sea, he got word that the people who exiled him there actually wanted to exile him to a much more remote island in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So Napoleon gathered up a few people, about 700 troops, boarded a ship and sailed to the north of France. He got off the ship, and word came that Napoleon was back in town, and the 5th Regiment was dispatched to dispatch Napoleon. When Napoleon met the 5th Regiment, he rode forward on a horse by himself. Then he got off the horse, and he walked closer to them. He was within gunshot range, and he yelled out, "Here I am, your emperor. Kill me if you wish." To which the 5th Regiment responded, "Vive l'empereur!" They weren't going to kill him, they were going to join him. So they began a march to Paris. And when he got to Paris, Napoleon was triumphant. And it's what's called the 100 days of Napoleon's rule. He ruled for just 100 days. And he knew that the Brits and the Prussians were not exactly happy to see him back. So he said, well, I'm just going to go after them. So he garners up this massive set of troops, and he goes and he fights, and there's the Battle of Waterloo. And the Brits withstand one attack after another, and then finally the Prussians come in and break Napoleon's right flank, and it's over. Napoleon loses. When he goes back to Paris, there's no more support for him. The public has abandoned him, the legislature has abandoned him, and Napoleon is forced to give up power. The rumors come true. The people decide to exile him to an island much further from the one, much further off the coast from where he was originally exiled. They exile him to the island of St. Helena. It's 1,800 kilometers off the coast of Africa in the middle of the Atlantic Sea. A painter imagined what this scene was like. Napoleon, this once mighty general, dropped off in the middle. There he is. And there's the boat faintly sailing off into the distance. Napoleon would spend his last 6 years in exile. Exile means to be away from one's home. But there's an undertone in which it's not just a voluntary choice to be away from one's home, but it's a forced departure from one's home. The theme of exile is familiar to readers of the Old Testament. The theme of exile comes up many times. It comes up with Egypt, comes up under Assyria, and it comes up again in Babylon. We think around the year 598, there was about 10 years where the Babylonian Empire besieged Jerusalem and the tribes of Israel. And they began deporting Israelites from that area into Babylon, probably to use them as servants and slaves. The worst of the offenses was the ransacking of the temple. The temple was burned, and the people longed for that temple. And so it's in this context that we find our story. It's exile. The people who are listening to the story that we have for today, to the poem that we have for today, are in exile. But I want to talk about exile, not just exile of people a long, long time ago, but our own exile as well. You see, when I think of exile, I think it doesn't necessarily have to be a geographical dislocation. We can have exile in other ways as well. I think about the exile of the lawnmower. which sounds a little bit strange, but let me paint this picture for you. You have a suburban neighborhood. Every house, which is by itself, has its own lawn, and every lawn has its own lawnmower. And so you might have 2,000 houses and just as many lawnmowers. I think we are in an exile of individualism. We are told that the only way that we can make it in this world is if you do it by yourself. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps and make it by yourself. Community? Do it by yourself. Own things by yourself. Everyone owns their own drill. Everyone owns their own lawnmower. Everyone owns their own mixer. Because it's good to be self-sufficient. I think that's an exile. Closely related to the exile of individualism is the exile of consumerism. There still is this saying, I think, therefore I am. But I think for many of us, there's a different saying that holds true. I consume, therefore I am. Only when I am a consumer in the economy, only when I'm a consumer of natural resources and products do I actually make an imprint and exist in this world. I think that's an exile that we are putting ourselves in. And closely related to that is the exile of technology. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not a Luddite. I love technology. I complain when my internet goes down. Technology brings a great many things to this world. Modern medicine is fantastic. But I know this will resonate with some of you. How many of you have either gone to a family gathering or gone camping or gone over to somebody's house and everyone around you is on your cell phone and you're like, hello, here I am, flesh and blood. I think sometimes we are in an exile of excessive technology. What happened to getting our hands dirty in the soil? What happened to getting our hands dirty kneading some bread? What happened to face-to-face conversations? So, while we may not be geographically dislocated from our home, I think we are actually dislocated in other ways from where we are meant to be. So, we have Isaiah 55, this story that Jamie read today. So the question for you is, are you a carrot or a stick type person? Do you prefer invitations to be better, or do you prefer the kind of disciplinarian side? We're going to tackle both of these so you can pick which one you like to listen to. We'll start with the stick, okay? Turn from your ways, right? So this, by the way, we're just going to go through and we're just going to pick verses from this story to fit a flow, but if you go back and read it, you'll see these verses. Let the wicked forsake their way, and the unrighteous their thoughts. Let them return to the Lord, that he may have mercy on them, and to our God, for he will abundantly pardon. Stop what you are doing and go the other way. Right? It's the U-turn. Stop where you are going and turn around and go the other way. If you think that the only way that you can be in this world is to be an individual, to do it all by yourself, you are wrong. Stop doing it. Go the other way. If you think that the only way that you can be in this world and make an imprint on this world is by consuming a lot of stuff, by buying the newest iPhone, by buying the most recent version of the car, stop doing it. It actually won't make any difference. And if you are one who is addicted to your technology, whether it be bread makers or cell phones, stop being addicted to it. Right? Turn from those ways. I don't like preaching like this. That's the stick version. We'll leave it there. Okay. What I prefer is the invitation. There's an invitation in this story, and I hope it's an invitation you will hear. This is actually the verse that the story starts with. It starts with this word, ho. Maybe a better way of reading it is, listen up. Listen up and hear these words. Everyone who thirsts, come to the waters. And you that have no money, come, buy and eat. Come buy wine and milk without money and without price. Well, there seems to be a couple of contradictions in this verse, right? How are you supposed to buy wine and milk, especially if you are in exile, and especially if you have no money? These things of abundance, well, maybe they are available without money, without you having to do anything at all. And if you are thirsty, come to the waters, for there is water that will satisfy. This is a burger. I like burgers. This burger looks particularly excellent. It looks like it's got some blue cheese on it and some bacon and a sourdough bun. If you have had a long day of work and your stomach is rumbling at the end of that day, this burger just may do it for you. For the record, I like lentil burgers as much as I like meat burgers. So maybe for you it's a lentil burger. But regardless, it will satisfy a hunger if your belly is rumbling. But if you are grieving, will this burger satisfy your grief? No. If you're trying to figure out who you are and what you're doing in this world, will this burger help you figure out what that is? No. Maybe there's something else that will satisfy us. Something else that will fill us up. Bread that satisfies. There's the practical question. Well, what is that bread that satisfies? Some people will say, open up your Bible. And that's true. I think there's actually some incredibly beautiful literature in there, stories and lessons that will inspire us, that continue to inspire us. And I think that is bread that satisfies. But I don't think it's the only way. Remember, the writer of Isaiah is actually writing to people a long, long time before there was ever such a thing as a Bible. So what else is that bread that satisfies? May I suggest community? At Bible study, we were actually saying meeting in church and singing together these days is a bit of a radical act. Gathering together, opening up about who you are and how you're doing, that's actually a radical act these days. Maybe community is some of that bread that satisfies. And maybe it's not just community with the person sitting across from you in the pew. Maybe it's also community with a much wider ecosystem. The people that sit beside you, and the sun that rises and sets, and the waters that flow through this land. Maybe it's meditation. Maybe for you, the bread that satisfies is spending 15 minutes in meditation. And maybe that meditation is quiet, just sitting there. Maybe that meditation is coloring. Maybe that meditation is singing or playing an instrument. May you know the bread that satisfies. In the text it says a different way. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways, says the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. Ultimately, we're talking about a choice. Not a choice that's made just once, but a choice that we continually make. Left or right? Right or wrong? A burger that will satisfy our hunger, or bread that will really give us life? At the end of Isaiah, the writer has this image. For you shall go out in joy and be led back in peace. The mountains and the hills will burst before you in song, and the trees of the fields will clap their hands. Instead of the thorn shall come up the cypress, and instead of the briar shall come the myrtle. It's a beautiful vision. It's almost Lord of the Rings-like. But do we actually imagine that the trees are going to grow hands and start clapping? Probably not. Is there all of a sudden going to be an extinction of blackberry bushes because there will be no more thorns? Will briars stop existing because in their place myrtle will grow? I don't think so. What strikes me about this last image is that maybe these things are already happening. We just open our eyes to them. Thorns and cypresses are growing all the same. We just need to choose to which one we're going to place our focus. See, I don't think lawnmowers or a sense of individualism or excessive consumerism or smartphones are going anywhere anytime soon. But if we choose a different path, maybe, just maybe, we will find ourselves coming out of exile, even though exile is happening all around us. So may you go out in joy and be led forth with peace. Let's stand and sing this.